I just wanted to start off by saying that every day for the past month, we've been hearing how important this election is, and that this election will impact us. And I can sit up here and say that this election is going to impact you this way and you that way. But on stage right now, I'm joined by three brilliant minds that will be able to educate us in ways of this election impacting you, your families, your neighbors, and those that you care about. So let's give another round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. All right, I'll get started with my notes, and then we'll get started with our questions. So unions have always been the forefront of the struggle for democracy, not only in the workplace, but also throughout our states and our country. In New Jersey, this fight is urgent. You guys see what's going on. You see the commercials after every Eagles game, every Giants game, whatever sport you like, you see the commercials on who's running, and your electricity bill's going up with one candidate and with the other. You'll see what happens. So we are going to be talking about labor rights, healthcare, education, voting access, and our movement to fulfill a role for future members and your children. The important question here is not just how unions defend themselves, but how we lead the fight going forward. So just to give you guys a little game plan of how this works, all of our panelists here will be able to answer every question. And I have several questions here for them. So the first one is, in what ways can we help bring the fight for democracy to people that don't see this fight, the governor's race, that will impact them as their own? Who would like to take that question?
First of all, thank you, President Long-Vickers, for the invitation. I'm very proud to be here with all of you from CWA. You're an integral part of the New Jersey AFL-CIO. Trust me when I tell you. So the question, here's my answer, because I gave that a lot of thought, and Alan, fortunately, did send us the questions ahead of time, and they're very complicated, intense questions, and we appreciate that. So here's what I think. I think when people don't see democracy as their fight, we have to start asking them to look at their own lives. Think about this. What matters the most? Their kids' schools, keeping a roof over your head, being able to afford health care, retiring with dignity. Democracy isn't just an abstract idea. It shows up in whether or not we can bargain a contract, we can bargain a raise, or we can protect our pensions, or keep the hospital or the insurance companies from jacking up our rates. That's why we start this conversation member to member. We need to talk to each other, each one of us in the workplace and in our communities. And I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's the truth. If we don't talk to each other about what's going on in our unions and how democratic our unions are. So we connect these personal matters, because I'm sitting at lunch today and we're talking to some people about what they like, and it happened to be the Eagles, and that's very important. But it matters to them. But I know, but it's important that when we relate to somebody and what's in it for me, and that's not a selfish thing. If it's, I want a good contract, or I want better health care, or I want to retire with dignity. It's something, or I want my kids to have a better life. And we all say that, but we gotta earn it, we gotta be it. So I'm just saying, you don't have to leave it at talk. Sign a union card, go to a union meeting, participate in your union, and go to the labor walks. And everything I'm gonna talk about is gonna end up with, we need to elect a governor that's gonna support us. Not somebody that says, you know, we're gonna do this, that, and that, and the other thing, and not mean a thing they say, because they're gonna try to placate us. We gotta elect somebody that's gonna represent us and keep our state democratic. Democracy isn't that far away in Trenton or in Washington. It's right here in this very room, and it's right here in your very union. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add to that, you know, democracy is a personal thing. It might not seem like it, but it's a very personal human process. You have to break it down for folks what actually democracy is, right? Because for many it might seem a very vague, abstract notion. But once you start talking about, okay, so you might not care about democracy, it seems to be too far away, but do you care about being able to pay your rent, for example, right? You can only do these things pay affordable housing if you have the ability to elect directly politicians who prioritize rent stabilization, for example, right? Democracy is also just your simple ability to go to a school board meeting, speak up for what's important in your kid's life. Democracy is being able to, just have a voice on like what happens in your community, on your street. Going to a city council meeting, that's democracy. So once you start breaking democracy down to these everyday aspects of everyone's lives, people will care about these issues. And who here knows what Cwa is? Who has done a training with CWA understands what Cwa is as a form of connecting with others? Anyone here who has been to a reversing runaway inequality training? All right, so we have a couple of people here. We teach this skill, right, about connecting with folks on everyday issues. Cwa stands for connect, engage, value, and ask. You have to find that connecting tissue between you and the person you are talking to that creates that ability to bring them into the conversation around a joint shared value. Democracy is also about values, like everyday values that people I'm sure care about, right? Fairness. Do you care about justice? Then you care about democracy. Do you care about fairness? Then you care about democracy. Do you care about equality? Then you care about democracy. These things are the core of what we do, and once you are able to emphasize these issues with members through Cwa, that everyday engagement tool that we teach, then you are going to be able to bring more people into the movement, which is so essential right now.
Well, first, before I give my response to that amazing question, let me thank again President Long-Vickers and to Dwayne for inviting me. For some who may not recognize my face, I've been in the union movement for about 15 years. I used to work at Local 1040. I was a staff rep before going on to the national CWA, and now I'm a missionary. But everything that we do for union workers remains at the core of the work that I do. And so when we talk about democracy, I would be a terrible minister if I didn't break down the word and go to the logos of democracy, which in the Greek means demokria. The root of it is two parts. Demos, say demos. Demos. That means people. And krios, say krios. Krios. That means power. So what we're talking about here is people power. So at the root of your question, Alan, we're saying, how do we fight for people power when the people no longer want their power? So how do you fight for people who have become apathetic? They no longer want the power. Remember, that apathy doesn't just show up. It's created because people hit a brick wall. They feel like they can't attain the power alone. And so we have to realign people's vision with a greater mission and vision of what we're working towards, right? So I think that's kind of at the root, is realigning people's vision to what we're working towards, which Laurel and Anna, right, has so eloquently put it, the basis of our collective bargaining rights. And I think that as we realign people, we have to make sure that their interests become a part of the conversation and align their interests with the bread and butter issues. Because people care about what money is in their paycheck, right? They care about their health care benefits. They care about their pensions. So once we align what they care about with the bigger goal, which is the people power, then we're able to get them back in the fight.
Thank you all for your comments on that. For our second question, Janelle, we'll start with you. So everyone in here comes from a different life experience, whether that's how you were raised, your education background, your family background. Everyone has a different experience. But we need to remember, as part of CWA Local 1040, we need to be as one as we move forward. So how do we make sure that CWA Local 1040 and other unions that may be represented here through family members stay strong and organized?
I think, unity starts at the ground level. And so when members have a voice early on in collective bargaining, and when they understand what the issues are early in the process, and we get them involved early in the process, they want to join the fight. I've seen the difference between decisions made for people versus decisions made with people. And inclusion on the front end prevents division on the back end. And so I think as we talk about being united in our collective action, we have to make sure that we are including everyone from the beginning of the process and getting their voice heard.
And Laura, we'll take your thoughts.
Yes, I can add to what Janelle just said, that solidarity doesn't just happen. It happens by decree, a little bit at a time. It's through the democratic process, and I love your definition of democracy. When every member has a voice, whether it's in contract demands or a strike vote or union priorities, that process generates, as Janelle said, buy-in, and it starts from the very beginning. And democracy in our union gives us an opportunity to disagree, to have our voices heard, to make decisions, and it also, on a broader level, with, not only with 1040, but solidarity is basically not just a slogan. It's teachers backing construction workers. It's the public sector backing nurses. It's all unions backing each other, and that's where our power lies. But it's got to be the internal union democracy where you learn your solidarity. And, you know, democracy gives us a voice. Solidarity gives us power, and one can't be done without the other. And that's how I've been living my union life through all these years, is that together they'll make us unstoppable. You need democracy and you need solidarity. And you need democracy within your own union, and get the power from there.
I would just add to these two remarks that a voice happens through year-round conversations, right? You can't just go to a member and ask for their action when you need something done before an election, right? That's the worst that can happen, right? When you only go to a member when there is something coming up and you need them to come out and canvass your phone bank. You have to have year-round conversations to engage these voices on a regular basis and make sure that they're part of the essential fabric of our union, the democratic fabric. Unions have a target on our backs right now because we are one of the very few places in the American society where the democratic muscle is exercised every single day. This meeting is a democratic meeting, right? If you have a question you can ask, you are able to talk to leadership right here in this setting. Worksite meetings are a democratic muscle, right? Electing your leadership is a democratic muscle. Voting on what priorities the union is going to take up as their agenda is a democratic muscle. We are exercising these regularly in unions, and most frequently these everyday practices that unions have translate in larger society. That's why union members are more likely to vote in elections. So as long as you keep up this practice of having regular meetings, engaging members regularly, not only when you need their help for, when an election is coming up, when you have these conversations, when you meet with members at the work sites, you are able to create that bond, that solidarity, that then employers can't divide you, right? Because you have that unity. That's formed on an everyday level, ground up through these type of meetings and conversations.
Thank you all. Three things that have been very apparent in this as our workshops have gone on today are fair wages, pensions, and healthcare. They're at the heart of union contracts. How do we ensure that the fight for democracy also protects these core economic rights for every member? Anna Marta, we'll start with you.
Well, economic rights are not separate from democratic rights, right? They are interconnected. When we fight for our collective bargaining rights, we are fighting for democracy. Collective bargaining itself is an exercise in democracy, right? So as long as we keep centering member voices in these conversations and have a democratic process to come up with what's important to our members, we have these values centered, right? In a way that gives members ownership over these issues. The more voice you have in the process, the more ownership you're going to feel at the end over the outcome.
come up? I agree very much. I said it almost the same way. Here's what I think. I think that the link is crystal clear. Contracts are our ballots at work, and ballots are contracts at the State House. So what does that mean? By voting for your contract, which again is done through the democratic process, you're voting for your power. Your contract is your power at work. And the stronger your contract is, the politicians in Trenton, for example, know that A, you have solidarity, and B, you fought for a very powerful contract. Now, how does that going forward? Well, we all know that the governor decides if pensions are funded, if healthcare costs are reined in, and if wage standards are going to be enforced. By electing leaders that support us, we're actually supporting our own workplace rights. So it's all, as Anna Marta said, it's all interconnected. Voting for your contract is your power at work, and a powerful contract is your voice at the State House. And I am going to make a little plug here that we need to hold elected officials accountable for what they say they're going to do. And I will say that, and I think I can say this, Michelle, that we at the State Fed, and I know your local union is supporting Mikey Sherrill. She's got a proven voting record, and I know that we will hold her accountable when she wins the governor's race. And the governor, when you think about this, when we want to talk about our wages, hours, and working conditions, the governor is ultimately your boss, and you're going to elect your boss in November. So I want you to be very careful about when you vote, that you're voting for your strong contracts for your families and your communities.
We're certainly Team Mikey here, correct, everyone?
And I would just echo everything that they just said and just say, you know, again, going back to the core of people power. When we collectively come together and all show up for the labor walks, or when we show up on the job and say, you know, we're fighting for this contract together, that's when we see democracy at work. That's when we can take back the power and ensure our collective bargaining rights and make sure that our economics match the voice that we have when we all collectively show up.
All right. What can past union struggles teach us about democracy and unions?
Well, I will tell you this, Alan. When I saw that question, I thought, oh my goodness, how many struggles have we been through? I've been in this position for 27 years, and I can tell you, we've been through a lot of struggles. However, we have won a lot of struggles as well. And I'm going to just give you, I have pages and pages of examples, but I'm going to give you one example, maybe two. Does anybody remember when the Janus decision was put down by the Supreme Court? Does anybody remember that? And we thought doom and gloom, and oh my goodness, public sector unions are going to be wiped out. Well, in New Jersey, we said, no, we're not. And your leadership came to the New Jersey State AFL-CIO en masse, CWA presidents, AFSCME presidents, all public sector presidents. And what we did was, we were fortunate enough in 2018 to basically pass the Workplace Democracy Enhancement Act. Does anybody know what that is? Well, you know what? I know Michelle Longvicker knows what it is. And I know Dwayne knows what it is, and I bet you Alan knows what it is because he probably lived it through his mother. We said, no, we're not going to have this happen in New Jersey. And we had good legislators in New Jersey that we supported, endorsed, and elected. And this act guarantees public sector unions access to workers, new hire orientations, worksite and email access, member data, and fair time to talk to new members, all through New Jersey's act of the Workplace Democracy Enhancement Act. That was not a gift. That was something we fought for, your leadership fought for, and we continue to fight for acts like this because we're not in a friendly environment, as we know. These, like I said, they were organized very tightly. This just one fight that we struggled with, you know, at first when you hear it, like, oh my goodness, but we know, we gathered together, we organized, we met with legislators, and we were fortunate enough to pass. That one act made a difference in your union. You're able now to talk to your members. And I want to just say one more thing, that, you know, the union democracy that we're all talking about here built that power. And that solidarity sealed the deal here. And it's all when your union presidents came together. We worked on this, we worked on it hard. And I just two more things that were a struggle for many, many years. We still have struggles, don't get me wrong. And we passed two bills just recently. One is in the private sector, and I really don't know if it happens in the public sector, but captive audience speeches. You know, when you're in an organizing campaign and the boss decides, all right, the union's looking too good here, I'm gonna bring you all into the workroom, I'm gonna buy you a sub or a hoagie, I'm gonna give you a bag of potato chips and a Coke, and then I'm gonna tell you how bad the union is. And it's legal. But we have something in New Jersey that prohibits the employer from doing that. They can do it, but they have to give the union equal time. That's unheard of anywhere. So we were able to pass that. And the last thing I will tell you that we've been fighting for years is, how many of you remember getting labor history in school? There you go. Nobody. Maybe one or two people. Well, we just passed a bill that from 6th to 12th grade, we are going to teach labor history in school. And not only are we going to teach it in school, I'm very proud of this, we're forming a coalition with the Department of Labor, with our union leaders, and with the Department of Education. And we're going to help design the curriculum so that we are not going to know, we're going to know more about just union strikes, we're going to learn how unions brought us the weekend and all the good things that unions do. So these were struggles. Maybe these weren't as difficult as the Janus Act or your struggles for getting a contract and the budget and all those things back in 2013 and 18. But I have to tell you that your leadership has been in the forefront of these struggles, and we look forward to working with all of you in the future. But let's get the right governor in here. Thank you.
I think what we learned through history is that when we come together and mobilize around common interests, that we win, right? And how many millennials or next gen people do we have in the room? Very few. We gotta get more of our next gen in the room. Okay, so you guys may not remember this, and I actually was still coming up during this time, but in the 80s, when CWA organized our public workers in New Jersey, I think back to the stories I heard from Carolyn Wade, and I heard from Larry Cohen, and I think about the struggles that they fought through in order to organize our public workers. And look at this room now. All the public workers that we now represent, because we fought together to make sure that happened, and it happened through organization. The other personal thing that I will recount is in 2019, when I was representing CWA Local 1045, we had a huge political fight around the mayoral race, and the mayor was threatening our workers if they did not support him as mayor, and they threatened their jobs. And I just remember having to go up there and speak at council meetings, and we fought and stood together. And because of that, we got him thrown out, we got a new mayor in, and we were able to get the best contract that we ever had at 1045.
I would just add to all this that past labor struggles teach us that the best organizing, the most resilient organizing happens when people organize from the bottom up, not top down. And I would take steps back in history and bring up the example of the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters Union in the 1930s, right? That was the first union organized by exclusively by Black workers, and they were completely grassroots when they got together to organize the union. The other lesson was that they faced harsh retaliation, harassment, discrimination, abuse, not only at the hands of the company, but also there was widespread racism in the country, right, in that political system. But they persevered because they linked their fight to a wider social movement, right? a wider set of values that wasn't only about their economic privilege or improvement. So as long as we keep that in mind, that we are in for the long haul. Lots of fights happen that have to take decades to come to fruition, right? We have to have patience. We have to keep the grassroots mobilized and centered. We have to sometimes overcome not only external resistance, but also sometimes internal resistance. In the case of that union, some black workers were afraid that they're going to lose their jobs, so they were resisting the union. All of these things teach me personally that I have to have patience, right? Sometimes I'm so eager to see the fruits of my labor happen, like we are fighting for healthcare, for example, right now. We have been fighting for healthcare for a long time, and it might not be the fight that we win this year. So patience, resilience, being able to deal with internal and external opposition, linking your fight to a larger, broader set of movements, and bridging divides across all kinds of different divides and backgrounds is important. And staying for the long haul, because most fights take a long time.
Yes, they do. One topic that I don't think gets enough attention is the impact that you guys have and unions have on the members' lives every day. So can you just talk about how unions have improved the lives for workers here, specifically in New Jersey?
New Jersey specifically. Well, making sure that our employees have fair wages, making sure they have health care benefits, obviously, but I think also in New Jersey, we sometimes, fight against one another. And so one thing that I think that is helpful with the unions, we can bring everybody together around common shared interests. In New Jersey, we can't even decide what's North Jersey, what's South Jersey, right? But we're able to come together around shared interests and make sure that we're fighting for the same fight.
And also, unions have made a big difference in New Jersey. For an example, we have paid family leave. We're the second state in the nation to pass paid family leave. And your union, again, was very integral in making sure that that happened. Now, that not only helps union members, but it helps every working person in the state of New Jersey. And every several years, we make improvements to paid family leave. It started out with 6 weeks, and now we're up to 12 weeks, and the benefit is higher. And so we have paid family leave, we have sick leave, that helps every member in the union, but it also helps the worker that's not in a union, make sure that they're eligible for sick leave. We also have a minimum wage. Does anybody know what the national minimum wage is? $7.25. How anybody could live on that is beyond me. However, in New Jersey, right now, the minimum wage is $15.49, and it will go up to $15.96 in January. These are different ways in which the union movement, who was at the forefront of fighting for all of these benefits, have helped New Jersey and New Jersey workers. And there's one more thing that I would be remiss if I didn't say, which helps everybody, but when unions want to strike, it's never an easy decision, and we all know that. It's not something we just say, oh hell, let's go on strike. Your back is against the wall, you have no other alternative but to strike. But in New Jersey, and we're the first in the nation, in New Jersey, if you go on strike for a legitimate reason, you just don't, it's not a wildcat. You go on strike in New Jersey, and you are replaced by a supervisor or a scab, you're eligible for unemployment the very first day of the strike. That's a huge victory, because it really protects our workers who have to go on strike. So these are ways in which these are ways in which we help not only unions, but also the members of our state as well. They're just some of the things that we make sure that everybody is benefiting from the union movement.
Both of the speakers said, strong unions like CWA don't stop at workplace organizing, right? We are fighting for fairer policies for everyone in our communities. Another example that I would add to the previous examples is that, like, for example, through CWA, we are fighting for safe staffing ratios for our nurses, but that's not only for our nurses, that's for patients and for the community at large as well. You are all public sector workers. You are improving our communities because you deliver super high quality public services, public good in this state. So give yourself a round of applause for all of them. Because your work is directly related to high quality standards that we have here in New Jersey. I would also add that the teachers' unions, right, here in New Jersey, because of their strong contract that they are able to get through their political power, they're able to retain top educators, which makes New Jersey one of the top states in the nation for education. So all of these things come from union power. Union power comes from your participation in the democratic union processes and your participation in the larger democratic process in society.
Thank you. How can healthcare costs and retirement security continue to be a major concern for union families? How can we give members a stronger voice in shaping bargaining priorities around these issues? Anna Marta, we're going to start with you for this one.
Yeah, I think this is an easy one because, like, for example, with healthcare, right? Healthcare is our biggest mandate this year. Why is that? Because we did a bunch of membership surveys. We engaged all of you in a democratic process of surveying what's important to you, and healthcare kept coming up as the number one issue that you care about, the number one concern. It's the number one concern we hear at the doors as well. So one way to engage is to constantly talk to members through these surveys. Again, worksite meetings is an important way to center your voices. Union elections, or, you know, again, just putting some opinions in about what issues matter to you, all through emailing, you know, your reps, talking about issues at the work site. All of these things are important mechanisms through which the union stays democratic and healthy, and through which the entire society keeps moving and representing people's values.
Well, we'll go to you.
I would just add a few things to what Anna Marta said. You can have structured listening sessions, you know, host short, focused meetings at work sites or on Zoom or however your members, where you want to meet your members, to talk about healthcare or retirement. Do text messaging, to, like, well, you already did the survey, but through text messaging, what's important, what are your priorities? And have benefit teach-ins. I mean, a lot of people don't understand, well, they don't really understand what their health benefits are. And if you have benefit teach-ins where members can learn how premiums and deductibles, it's just another short way of teaching members. So the more they understand, the more that they can, you know, vote on something that they know is correct. And like, well, I can't really add to anything Anna Marta said because everything she said I agree with. And then have transparency. Talk to your membership honestly about what the deductibles are, even give them an example of, you know, a 1% wage increase equals this much, and that's how it's going to affect your health care. But it is a tough issue, and it's all about talking to your members, helping them guide their priorities as well, and then listening, just strong listening skills.
Yeah, I think strong listening, I think that the committee meetings and the communications are important. I think also making sure that we have those who are close to retirement age at the bargaining table, as well as those who are going to be affected by healthcare increases in premiums are important, right? Making sure that those people who are going to be most affected are sitting at the bargaining table so that their voices are heard and that their voices are not siloed. Because an increase to one person is going to mean so much more than to someone else, right? And so for those people who are going to be impacted the most, we need to make sure we hear their voices at the table. So I would say make sure we're including those who are, intimately affected and making sure that they're at the table.
And I'm going to go right back to you by saying, what can we do to keep unions strong for the next generation of New Jersey workers?
It's funny, when I aged out of next gen, I said, wait a minute, I'm still next gen. I still think I'm next gen. So how can we continue to engage? I think that, making sure that they are at the bargaining table. I think that making sure that young workers are included in not only worksite meetings, right, but also in sidebar conversations to say, what are your concerns? What is it that you are affected by the most right now? And then bringing them into the conversation and making sure that their voice is heard. So I would say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way. There is nothing to add to that. I would just say that, pensions and healthcare in particular are divisive subjects that can divide membership across generational lines. Unions are special organizations because we bridge these divides by bringing intergenerational, communities together in one setting. Like I see here, folks from all ages, right? And that's the value of these type of meetings and the union itself. Again, that's why one of the reasons we have a target on our back, because we do these things that no one else in society is able to achieve. We bridge divides and we bridge gaps.
I would say, they both said it so eloquently, and I would just add,
We can make union meetings shorter, and we can cut the jargon, and we can have younger people that really want to engage, make them leaders now, because they bring energy, and they will bring that energy into the future.
Thank you.
Once Mikey gets into office, and
How can we ensure that the state and other local leaders listen to our voices as union members?
Anna Marta, I'll start with you there.
Once Mikey gets into office, well, that's the first step, right? What's the next part of the question?
How do we make sure that they listen, we hold them
They
accountable?
listen. Right. Well, accountability is another thing that we teach in all of our political trainings, right? Democracy, whether it's union democracy or electoral democracy, doesn't stop with voting. The key thing that needs to follow up is holding politicians accountable. How do you do that? Again, through member participation. We often do call-in sessions, right? We organize call-in campaigns. If a politician that we elected doesn't respond to our needs, then we start a public pressure and mobilization through different stages of that mobilization structure. We write letters, we write emails, we call them. We go, if those things don't work, then we go out and start rallying. We start protesting. We have so many other options at our disposal, but holding folks accountable is key. And accountability starts with participation. Again, I have to stress that point. You can't hold people accountable that you don't directly vote in, right? So voting is the first step. Participating in electoral process is the first step. But then after that, you need to hold them accountable through these measures, through paying attention what they do, to staying engaged and making sure that you don't, keep your eyes off the ball. These are everyday things that don't require a whole lot of attention once you are in it as an everyday practice.
I think, Anna Marta, I'm going to segue into your
Participation. We at the State Fed call it participatory democracy. You have to participate in order to keep democracy strong. And yes, we have to hold Mikey and every person that we elect accountable. And we should expect nothing less than ironclad commitments from Mikey Sherrill and all the assembly that are up this time. But they can't do it by themselves. Once that person gets elected, and it will be Mikey, we need to show her our support when a bill comes up or she wants to work with us. We have to show up, we have to be seen, we have to turn out, and again, it's all through participation. And I think that and I'm gonna say another commercial for Mikey, but Mikey's got a proven record. She has a 100% COPE record, Committee on Political Education. She's proven over and over again that she supports collective bargaining. But when they become governor, sometimes, the other side, she gets pushed and pulled from whether it's corporations or et cetera. So we have to make sure that she stands with her commitments by also showing her that we stand with her. And she's already proven that she's going to stand with us. But again, like we said, we need participatory democracy. Now, on the other hand, and I will say this, Jack Chitterelli said, if and when he becomes governor, the very first day he's going to do Doge 2. So we have a very clear choice to make. But as, again, Anna Marta said, we have to hold our candidate accountable, and we have to support her if times get a little tough.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, spot on. I would just only add that, you know, we stand in this unique tension, especially for those who are public workers, that we also get to vote our boss in office, right? And so while we're showing up for Mikey Sherrill when she needs us, we also hold her accountable. And we make sure that she understands that, you know, she works for us too, right? And so as we are doing that, and as we are stewarding this unique dynamic and relationship with our boss and the person who also works for us, that we have to make sure that our voices are heard by, you know, whether it's signing petitions when we need to, when we show up, you know, on their doorstep when we need to in Trenton, whatever we need to do to hold them accountable, we need to make sure that we are doing that together.
Thank you. I have a question for the audience. How many of you have had conversations with family members or friends or just somebody in the street that they feel like they're going to vote for the other candidate and not Mikey? Has anybody had that? Be honest, it's okay. How many of those conversations have gotten heated? Whether on Facebook, whether on Twitter, where have they gotten? So my question to the panel is, you see the hands that were raised, some people didn't, I had. What do you say to them about keeping their cool maybe? Do they go low? Do they go high? Where do they find the line in this election? Because it is so important.
I would say the key here, and again, this is what we emphasize as we talk to members and we do trainings and we engage and mobilize. You have to keep it on the issues, right? As long as you keep it issue-centered and not partisan, you can find common ground with people. All of our materials that go out about this election are issue-based, you know, related to pensions. Who supports, you know, pension security? Well, it's clear that one side does, the other doesn't. There are stats that you can, you know, look up. There are simple voting records that you can cite because thankfully these are available. Jack Chitterelli was an assembly member, 3 terms. All of his votes are public record. So pension, right, is important to everyone. Healthcare, who stands with us on healthcare? Well, it's Mikey, not Jack. State government, who stands with the values, you know, stating the value of public service and public employees? It's Mikey. Jack has said that he wants to cut state government by 30%. What do you think that will mean for you and your loved ones' jobs? It's going to mean losses, job losses. There are so many other issues from, you know, transit. Who stands for better transit? Who stands for better housing? All of these are everyday issues that you can bring up. But I would focus just for your, you know, just for your communities and families on pensions and healthcare. These 2 critical things are clearly showing a very different vision from these 2 candidates. Starkly different visions and futures for our state, your jobs, your families, and your family members. So the choice is theirs. You can keep it, obviously, have to keep it, you know, in family cordial and hopefully loving, but focusing on the issues and highlighting the differences is key.
I'm just going to piggyback on that and just say, stay on the issue, right? Because I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in all these other emotional things and these scenarios, these hypotheticals. But where do they stand on the issues? And these issues are going to affect your family members and your friends directly. And so as you guys are discussing this upcoming election with them, make sure you stay on target, stay focused with the goal, because even the people who disagree with you can become your common allies down the road. Because when something affects them later on, they're going to come back to you and say, oh wait, you were right. And so then you make them an ally in the next election or on the next issue, the next battle in Trenton. And so just remember that you are also stewarding these relationships for longer term goals.
Alan, you did ask, do you go low or you go high?
That's what I want to know.
Well, you know, you have to stay steady. As both of these women said, you stay with the issues, and you stay with your values. But there's another thing. You know, I'm in a position where, you know, I get to see public sector, private sector, healthcare, and I have my own family. So, you know, when I talk to them about the issues, about whether it's a governor's race or an assembly race, I say, do you care about me? And they go, yeah. Well, if you care about me, you'll listen to what I'm saying. I'm showing you the facts. But if you want to help me, or you want to help Anna, or you want to help Janelle, then vote the right way. I mean, and vote this way. I mean, I don't tell them how to vote, but it's always something that they care about. I mean, there are people that, like Janelle said, they go into all these other issues that really don't affect them, but they're listening to, I'm going to say the way it is, propaganda. I don't know if it's the border or it's guns or whatever, but vote for your family, vote for your union contract, and vote for your values. And I also want to say, if someone tells you who they are, believe them. Jack Ciattarelli told us who he is. Believe him. We're suffering from those consequences right now in Washington, D.C. Don't let this happen to New Jersey. So I would say, don't go low, but stay on the facts, and every once in a while you might have to set somebody straight.
Thank you. Do your research. All right, we're coming down to the final stretch. How does who we elect as the next governor affect our ability for unions to organize, bargain, and hold leadership accountable, which we kind of touched on?
Well, it relates to the prior question, and to the list of issues that I would focus on, I would also add collective bargaining. Mikey stands for our right to be able to collectively bargain. She supports unions. Jack doesn't. I don't think it's a secret, and I hope it's not going to sound too partisan, but it's true, so I have to state it, that Republicans want every state to be a right-to-work state, right? A right-to-work state in New Jersey would mean that unions will disappear, because that would mean that the requirement that union members who are covered by union contract need to pay dues to the union. That would kill unions, right? So that's their vision for the entire nation that has already been happening in about 27 states across America. In states like Michigan, Indiana, or Wisconsin, former big union states, the outcomes in those states are stark and dark. The income inequality is staggering in those states. Economic growth is slow. Health outcomes are really terrible. Civic participation is low. That's what Republicans want, because that will keep them in power, and that will keep their corporate overlords getting more and more wealth away from working people. So that's their vision. We need to stop that. We really need to get our asses to the polls. I'm sorry to say it like that. And we need to bring a lot of people, because this election is close, and it's not even a joke how different these two candidates are on the issues that are most important to us, our members, and our families. And this election hits at the core of what we are talking about here today, which is democracy. Do you want a state where workers have a voice, where we can determine what happens to us as public employees, or do you want a state that is governed top-down, and we are told what we can do or what we can do, what books we can read or what we can't read? This is the vision here, right? So I urge all of you, if you don't have enough information about these two candidates, to reach out, seek us out. We are able to provide you with literature, very brief little one-pagers that you can share with members and family. But do your part in making sure that this election goes our way. And our way, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican or Independent, our way means the union way. The union way means the democratic way, all right? So that's my pledge to you. I'm doing my part here, but as we are talking about participatory democracy, it means that all of you have a huge role, and all of you need to take part in this.
So the governor is going to appoint our commissioners. They're going to ensure that we can uphold our collective bargaining through legislation. And so this is why it's so important to get the right person in office, so that we can continue to fight for what matters to us. And I think for each of us in here, we have to show up at the polls, like you said. We have to make sure we get our family out, we have to get our friends out, and make sure we get each and every one of our union members out.
Excellent. Yes, as Janelle said, the governor sets the tone for the state. The governor appoints cabinet members. They appoint people on the PERC board, on the all the boards that affect you, whether it's you know, the PFRS or the pension board. They appoint those people. Of course, we have input, but we won't have input if we have an anti-union governor. But we're very fortunate here in New Jersey that we have a strong labor movement that all of you participate in. And as both of these women said, we need to vote. We need to vote for a governor that supports collective bargaining. We need to vote for a governor that's going to support pro-union legislation, because there's a lot more left on the table that we have to accomplish for not only our brothers and sisters in the public sector, but in the healthcare. We've been fighting for safe staffing now for 20-some years, and sooner or later we're going to get it. But it's been a long fight. But I also will let you know that we need to send our next governor with a team. We can't just send the governor there and not make sure that we elect our assembly members. And right now in New Jersey, we're the only state in the nation that has a labor candidates program. And we have 4 union members running for assembly, and they're union members. They're actually were rank and file, and they've moved up to leadership. And to date, we have 7 CWA members that are running at various levels of government. Again, we need to send the governor with a team. We need to keep this state pro-union, and we are fortunate that we have strong labor movement in New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right, I want to get in
A last word from each of you, just talking about your thoughts on this upcoming election, your thoughts on the fight for democracy, and just moving forward. What can we do, the people in this room right now, to make a difference for their future, themselves, and their future?
I'll start, and I just make it a little bit personal, because that's what we said at the beginning, right? That if you want to bring in more people into the movement, you need to connect with them on a personal, human level. Democracy as a word might not mean a lot to many people. I grew up, I wasn't born here. I immigrated to the United States when I was 26 from Eastern Europe, Romania, where I grew up under a brutal authoritarian regime, a dictatorship, with a father who was an outspoken critic of that regime. So I have this blood of resistance in me, flowing through me. I came to this country thinking that I'm coming to this beacon of freedom and democracy, right? Seeking those values, seeking those processes. And I soon learned that it's not the case. We are not the beacon of freedom and democracy, because you can't be free if you can't afford to live, right? So I left my corporate job after my son was born 11 years ago, after I realized that, you know, once he's born, I'm not gonna have paid family leave. It's just not something that this country provides. Wow, how so? When I realized that, you know, bringing a child into this world costs in America thousands of dollars, and you need to be scrunched over a spreadsheet figuring out which hospital to go to, which is more affordable. When I realized that I'm not gonna be able to, you know, have a child and have a career at the same time. It's just not really possible in this country, where housing became an issue in New York City. So anyhow, I left that world behind, a lucrative corporate job, to join the fight, to build power for working people. And here I am, you know, 12 years later, doing this work with all of you, and it's an honor. It's not always easy. There are very hard moments in this fight, especially when you feel like nothing that you do matters. I want, again, to just give that perspective that we are in for the long haul. We really need to make this work for ourselves now, and, you know, make the best out of it. I think democracy is a fragile thing, and it can break, it can go away. It's not a static, you know, thing that once you have it now, you're gonna have it forever. It requires participation. And as someone who wasn't born here, I feel like sometimes Americans take democracy way too granted. Coming from a country that didn't have democracy and had to actually have an actual revolution with people on the streets facing tanks and, you know, bullets, I think we have something valuable that we need to protect, and the moment is now before it slips away. So we have a structure for democracy that's called voting. It's happening on November 4th. It has already been happening because we have vote by mail ballots that you can all fill out and send back. But if we don't take this step to take care of this thing called democracy, which is a very everyday thing that impacts our lives in very personal human ways, then we are going to lose it. We are already losing democracy in huge, measurable ways. We are backsliding. It's very late on the democracy clock. We can still salvage it, but we need all of you to take action. There are some sign-up forms that you can take out of your binders. They look like something like this. They have a QR code where you can sign up to the AFL's CLC box. Laurel here is going to be able to maybe talk to you more about them. But every Saturday we go out and we canvass for Mikey and for our endorsed candidates. We also have a phone bank Thursday that I hope that you are going to hop on and make some calls to other CWA members and urge them to vote and vote for Mikey Sherrill and our endorsed Labor candidates. Our future depends on it.
That's good. I'll leave the last word to Laurel. So, you know, as we've been talking today about saving democracy, saving our people power, right? I think unions epitomize this power. And so as we close, I just want us to think about what's most important. And as we get ready for this, you know, gubernatorial race, what's important to you? What's important to you? Because do you want to live in a state where we don't have the right to collectively bargain? Do you want to live in a state where we can't fight over our wages and our health care? No, we want to make sure that our voices is heard and that we have that people power. And so, you know, as a former rep and now as a minister, I believe that our calling is bigger than wages alone. It's when we defend dignity of our workers, we're defending the soul of this nation. And this governor's race will test whether workers' voices are protected or pushed aside. If we lead with conviction and unity, we don't just win campaigns, but we shape the next generation.
As both of these women said again, our state and our democracy depends on what we do. And one thing I've seen in my many years here is everybody, oh, there's no energy, there's no energy. But you know, the consequences of apathy are devastating. Without a strong voice, we will have policies that will devastate us. We will be affected so negatively with our livelihoods, with our contract, but it's not all doom and gloom. We have a great opportunity here in New Jersey to elect a governor who is pro-union, to elect a governor that understands working people. And we are all here. You're all here because you're participating. You're all here because you care about your union and democracy. And our democracy is at stake. And the first thing we can do is register to vote, make sure our families are registered to vote, and make sure, and I'm going to say it, and I know it's vote for Mikey Sherrill because she's got a proven record. Jack Ciattarelli said who he is, you know, and I want to tell you one more thing about Jack Ciattarelli. When he was a commissioner, a freeholder commissioner up in, I think it was Somerset County, he voted against collective bargaining for the police and firemen. Does anybody know that? This is what you're going to be dealing with if Ciattarelli gets in. And look, we're dealing with a lot of negative information and lies and half-truths in Washington. We want to keep New Jersey a good state, a strong union state, and a state where we can look forward to the future. And that is by getting involved, making sure we have labor walks every single Saturday that you can participate in, that you can go door to door and talk to your union members, brothers and sisters in the same labor movement. They might be a construction worker, they might be a nurse, they might be someone that works for the state. But if you just get to say, hi, my name is Laurel, I'm from the CWA, and I really want you to know a little bit more about Mikey Sherrill and why we need her, you'd be surprised at the reception that you will get. We have, 16 more days left to make sure that we elect someone that's going to look out for our future and our family's future, and your union's future, because without a voice, you are at the mercy of whatever they put in front of you. So, but on that note, I will say that we feel very positive about what's going on. I look around this room and I think, wow, I see all these red shirts and I see people listening. You're actually nodding, and I think it's great. And I'm very, very, very pleased, President Long-Vickers, that we could be here today. And Executive Vice President, where's Wayne? Right there. Thank you so much for this, and it's really been a wonderful experience. Thank you. Don't forget to vote November 4th, or vote early.
Let's give it up for our panelists, guys. Thank you.
Two things I want to leave you with. I go to the CLC walks, and one of the speakers there, he says the only poll that matters is the poll on November 4th at 9 p.m. So whatever poll you see on Facebook, don't worry about it. Twitter, if you have it, don't worry about it. The only poll that matters is on November 4th. So make sure you guys get out and vote, because when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Thank you. Thank you.